The marketplace was alive with the sounds of merchants shouting, the smell of spices filling the air, and the vibrant colors of fabrics swaying in the breeze. But amidst the chaos, a small orphan boy named Tariq stood quietly, his tattered clothes and bare feet a stark contrast to the wealth around him. He held out a small wooden bowl, hoping for a few coins or a piece of bread. His stomach growled loudly, but no one seemed to notice him, except for one man. Sheikh Ahmed, a wealthy and powerful man known for his lavish lifestyle, strode through the market with his entourage. His fine silk robes shimmered in the sunlight, and his gold rings glinted as he waved his hand dismissively at the beggars who dared to approach him. When Tariq stepped forward, his small voice trembling as he asked for help, Sheikh Ahmed stopped and looked down at him with a sneer. "An orphan like you should know your place," Sheikh Ahmed said coldly. "Why should I waste my wealth on someone who has nothing to offer in return?" Tariq's eyes filled with tears, but he stood his ground. "Please, sir, just a small piece of bread. I haven't eaten in days." Sheikh Ahmed laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that drew the attention of the crowd. "You think I care about your hunger? Move aside, boy, before I have you thrown out of the market." The crowd murmured, some shaking their heads in disapproval, but no one dared to speak against the powerful sheikh. Tariq lowered his head and stepped back, clutching his empty bowl tightly. As Sheikh Ahmed walked away, his laughter echoing through the market, Tariq whispered to himself, "One day, you'll see. Even the smallest can rise." Weeks passed, and Tariq continued to struggle to survive. He slept in the shadows of the marketplace, scavenged for scraps of food, and avoided the guards who often chased him away. But one fateful day, everything changed. Sheikh Ahmed was traveling through the desert with his caravan, returning from a trade expedition. The sun blazed overhead, and the sand stretched endlessly in every direction. Suddenly, a group of bandits appeared on the horizon, their swords glinting in the sunlight. They attacked the caravan with brutal force, overpowering the guards and looting the goods. Sheikh Ahmed tried to flee, but his horse stumbled, throwing him to the ground. As the bandits closed in, Sheikh Ahmed thought his life was over. But then, a small figure emerged from the dunes, moving swiftly and silently. It was Tariq. The boy had been following the caravan from a distance, hoping to find some discarded food or water. When he saw the attack, he didn't hesitate. Tariq grabbed a fallen guard's sword, his small hands trembling but determined. He charged at the bandits, shouting at the top of his lungs. Surprised by the sudden attack, the bandits turned to face him. Tariq fought with a courage that belied his size, dodging blows and striking back with precision. One by one, the bandits fell, until the remaining few fled into the desert. Sheikh Ahmed stared in disbelief as Tariq approached him, the sword still in his hand. The boy's face was streaked with sweat and sand, but his eyes were steady. "Are you hurt, sir?" Tariq asked, his voice calm. Sheikh Ahmed could only nod, too shocked to speak. The orphan he had mocked and dismissed had just saved his life. As Tariq helped him to his feet, the sheikh's mind raced with questions. Who was this boy? And why had he risked his life for someone who had shown him nothing but cruelty? The caravan regrouped, and Sheikh Ahmed ordered his men to set up camp for the night. Tariq sat by the fire, his small frame illuminated by the flickering flames. Sheikh Ahmed approached him, his usual arrogance replaced by a hesitant curiosity. "Why did you save me?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. Tariq looked up at him, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said simply. Sheikh Ahmed frowned, his mind struggling to reconcile the boy's actions with his own behavior. "But I treated you poorly. I refused to help you when you needed it most. Why would you risk your life for me?" Tariq shrugged. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Even you." The sheikh was silent for a long time, staring into the fire. For the first time in his life, he felt a pang of guilt. He had always believed that wealth and power were the measures of a person's worth, but this orphan boy had shown him something far more valuable: kindness and courage. As the night deepened, Sheikh Ahmed made a decision. "Tariq," he said, his voice firm but kind, "come with me. You have a place in my household now. I owe you my life, and I will not forget it." Tariq's eyes widened in surprise, but he nodded slowly. "Thank you, sir." The two sat by the fire, the desert wind whispering around them. But as the flames danced and the stars glittered above, a new danger loomed on the horizon. Unbeknownst to them, the bandits had not given up. They were regrouping, their eyes set on revenge. And this time, they would not be so easily defeated. The next morning, as the caravan prepared to continue its journey, a scout rushed into the camp, his face pale with fear. "Sheikh Ahmed," he cried. "The bandits, they're coming. And there are more of them than before." Sheikh Ahmed's heart raced as he turned to Tariq. The boy's face was calm, but his eyes were sharp with determination. "We'll face them together," Tariq said, gripping the sword tightly. Sheikh Ahmed nodded, a new-found respect for the orphan burning in his chest. But as the sound of hoofbeats grew louder and the dust cloud on the horizon grew larger, he couldn't help but wonder, would they survive this new threat? And if they did, what would become of the unlikely bond between a wealthy sheikh and a humble orphan? The bandits were coming, and the desert would soon be stained with blood. But for now, all they could do was prepare for the battle ahead. The bandits charged toward the caravan like a sandstorm, their swords raised and voices roaring. Tariq gripped his stolen blade, his small hands shaking but ready. Sheikh Ahmed stood beside him, his face pale but determined. "Stay close to me," the sheikh shouted over the chaos. Tariq nodded, his eyes locked on the approaching enemies. The first bandit swung his sword at Sheikh Ahmed, but Tariq leaped forward, parrying the blow with a loud clang. The bandit stumbled, surprised by the boy's speed. Before he could recover, Tariq slashed at his legs, sending him crashing to the sand. "Well done, boy," Sheikh Ahmed shouted, his own sword clashing with another bandit. But there were too many. The caravan guards fought fiercely, but the bandits outnumbered them 2-1. Tariq ducked and weaved, his heart pounding as he dodged strikes. One bandit grabbed him by the arm, lifting him off the ground. "Got you now, little rat," he snarled. Tariq bit the man's hand hard, making him scream and drop him. As the bandit clutched his bleeding hand, Tariq grabbed a fallen dagger and plunged it into the man's foot. The bandit howled, collapsing to his knees. Meanwhile, Sheikh Ahmed fought back-to-back with his guards, sweat pouring down his face. "We can't hold them off much longer," one guard yelled. Just as the bandits closed in, a thunderous boom echoed across the desert. A cloud of sand erupted behind the caravan. A group of riders on camels, armed with bows and spears, charged toward the battle. Their leader, a woman in a black cloak, let out a piercing war cry. "The Bonu Hadi tribe," a bandit shouted in panic. "Retreat!" The bandits scrambled to flee, but the tribesmen surrounded them, capturing the remaining attackers. Tariq stared in awe as the woman dismounted, her sharp eyes scanning the scene. She walked toward Sheikh Ahmed, her voice cold. "You're lucky we were tracking these thieves, Sheikh. The desert is no place for fools." Sheikh Ahmed bowed his head, humbled. "Thank you, Zara. I owe you my life, again." Zara's gaze shifted to Tariq. "And who is this?" "This is Tariq," the sheikh said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "He saved me before you arrived." Zara raised an eyebrow. "A child warrior? Interesting." She tossed Tariq a small leather pouch. "Dates and nuts. You've earned it." Tariq caught the pouch, grinning despite his trembling legs. Back at the caravan camp, the tribesmen helped bind the bandits' wounds and load them onto camels to be taken to the city prison. Tariq sat by the fire, chewing on a date, when Sheikh Ahmed approached him. The sheikh's fine robes were torn and stained with sand, but his voice was gentle. "You fought bravely today, Tariq. Braver than any man here." Tariq shrugged. "I just did what I had to." Sheikh Ahmed hesitated, then sat beside him. I want to apologize. I was wrong to treat you so cruelly in the market. You've shown me more honor than I deserve." Tariq looked up, surprised. "Does this mean you'll help other orphans now?" The sheikh laughed softly. "Yes. Starting with you. When we return to the city, you'll live in my palace. You'll have food, clothes, and tutors. No one will harm you again." Tariq's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" But as the caravan packed up to leave, a shadow watched from the dunes. Jaffer, Sheikh Ahmed's most trusted advisor, clenched his fists. For years, he'd schemed to inherit the Sheikh's wealth, and now this orphan was being treated like a son? This changes nothing, Jaffer muttered to himself. He slipped away from the camp, riding his camel into the night. 2 hours later, he arrived at a hidden cave where the bandit leader, bruised but alive, sat glaring at him. "You promised us easy gold, Jaffer," the bandit snarled. "Instead, my men are prisoners." Jaffer tossed him a bag of coins. "Silence. There's another way to ruin the Sheikh. The boy is his weakness now. Kidnap him, and the Sheikh will pay any ransom." The bandit leader grinned, his teeth yellow in the firelight. "And then, Jaffer said coldly, "we kill them both." The next morning, Tariq rode beside Sheikh Ahmed on a royal camel, gazing at the glittering city gates ahead. For the first time in his life, he felt hope. But as they entered the crowded streets, a hooded figure lurked in an alley, watching Tariq closely. Tonight, the figure thought, the boy disappears. That evening, a grand feast was held in Tariq's honor. Musicians played, and servants brought trays of roasted lamb and honey cakes. Tariq, now bathed and dressed in clean clothes, sat beside the Sheikh, grinning shyly at the applause. But as the night wore on, a servant slipped Jaffer a note. He read it, smirked, and nodded to a shadowy corner of the room. 2 men in black cloaks melted into the hallway, their eyes fixed on Tariq. Later, Tariq wandered the palace gardens, marveling at the fountains and jasmine flowers. Suddenly, a hand clamped over his mouth, and a sack was thrown over his head. He kicked and screamed, but the men dragged him toward a secret passageway. "Quiet, brat," one hissed. "You're worth a fortune now." Tariq's heart raced as he was shoved into a dark tunnel. Somewhere ahead, a door creaked open, and the smell of the desert night air hit his face. "Move!" the kidnapper growled. But as they stepped outside, a low, rumbling growl echoed through the darkness. A pair of glowing yellow eyes emerged from the shadows. The glowing yellow eyes moved closer, and the growl grew louder. Tariq froze, his heart pounding as the men holding him cursed and stumbled back. The sack over his head slipped slightly, and through the fabric he saw a massive desert wolf step into the moonlight. Its fur was grey like storm clouds, and its teeth glinted like daggers. "Wolves!" one kidnapper shouted, dropping Tariq's arm to draw his knife. The wolf lunged, snapping its jaws at the man's leg. He screamed as the beast dragged him to the ground. The second kidnapper bolted, leaving Tariq sprawled in the dirt. The boy scrambled to pull the sack off his head just as 2 more wolves emerged from the shadows. They circled him, snarling. Tariq held his breath, pressing himself against the palace wall. But instead of attacking him, the wolves turned toward the fleeing kidnapper. The pack leader, the giant grey wolf, let out a howl, and the others chased the man into the desert. Tariq didn't wait. He sprinted back toward the palace, his bare feet slapping against the cold stones. "Help! Someone help!" he screamed. Guards came running, their torches lighting up the garden. "The boy's here," one shouted. Sheikh Ahmed rushed out, his face pale with fear. He grabbed Tariq's shoulders, checking him for injuries. "What happened? Who took you?" Tariq trembled. "Men in black cloaks. They threw a sack over my head, but wolves attacked them." The Sheikh's eyes darkened. "Wolves? In my palace gardens?" Before Tariq could explain, Jaffer pushed through the crowd, his voice smooth but urgent. "Sheikh Ahmed, the boy is clearly traumatized. Let me take him to his chambers. We'll question him in the morning." Tariq frowned. There was something about Jaffer's tone he didn't trust. "No. The wolves saved me. They chased the bad men." The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Wolves saving a boy? It sounded like a child's fantasy. "Enough," Sheikh Ahmed said firmly. "Double the guards tonight. Jaffer, bring the boy to his room. And send scouts to track those wolves. If they're near the palace, they're a danger to us all." Jaffer bowed. "At once, my lord." In Tariq's new bedchamber, Jaffer closed the door and turned to the boy with a fake smile. "You must be exhausted. Rest now. The Sheikh will deal with everything." Tariq sat on the edge of his bed, eyeing Jaffa suspiciously. "Why did those men take me? Do they want money?" Jaffa's smile tightened. "Bandits are greedy creatures. But don't worry, Sheikh Ahmed will protect you." As Jaffa left, Tariq noticed something odd. The advisor's boots were dusty, as if he'd been riding in the desert. And there was a faint smell of smoke on his robes, like a campfire. The next morning, Tariq found Sheikh Ahmed in the courtyard, shouting at his guards. "How did kidnappers enter my palace? Who's responsible?" The guards hung their heads. "We found a hidden tunnel, my lord. It leads to the desert." Sheikh Ahmed turned to Tariq. "Did you see their faces?" Tariq shook his head. But one had a scar on his hand. "And they smelled like burnt sugar." The sheikh's eyes widened. "Burnt sugar? That's the smell of halwa smoke. The bandits must have a hideout near the sugar traders' road." He ordered his men to search the area. Jaffa, standing nearby, clenched his fists. "Stupid boy," he thought. "But no matter. The next plan will work." Days passed, and Tariq began lessons with the palace tutors. He learned to read, write, and even sword fight. But he couldn't stop thinking about the wolves. At night, he crept to the garden, leaving scraps of meat near the wall. "Thank you," he whispered to the darkness. Sheikh Ahmed embraced Tariq. "You've saved us all." Again. But as the group celebrated, the jinn's lamp began to tremble. The wolf growled, ears flattening. "What's wrong?" Tariq asked. The jinn's form flickered. "My magic disrupts the balance. The desert itself will rebel. Beware the sand's fury." With a thunderclap, the jinn vanished, and the oasis shook violently. Cracks split the ground, swallowing the golden lamp. The wolf howled a warning as a monstrous sandstorm formed on the horizon, a swirling wall of darkness taller than mountains. "Run!" Sheikh Ahmed yelled. They raced toward the canyon tunnel, the storm devouring the oasis behind them. But as they reached the crevice, the wolf stopped, turning to face the storm. "Come with us," Tariq begged. The wolf nudged him toward the tunnel, its golden eyes sorrowful. Then it sprinted toward the storm, vanishing into the raging sand. "No!" Tariq cried. Sheikh Ahmed pulled him into the tunnel just as the storm swallowed the valley. When they emerged in the canyon, the sky was clear, but the wolf was gone. Tariq collapsed to his knees, tears in his eyes. "It sacrificed itself for us." Sheikh Ahmed knelt beside him. "The wolf spirit will always guard you, Tariq." "I swear it." Days later, back at the palace, Jaffa stood trial. The court stripped him of his title and sent him to labor in the salt mines. Tariq, now hailed as a hero, sat beside Sheikh Ahmed at feasts, but his heart ached for the wolf. One night, as he left bread in the garden, a familiar growl made him turn. The grey wolf stood in the moonlight, unharmed. "You're alive." Tariq gasped. The wolf nuzzled his hand, then dropped a golden locket at his feet. Inside was a portrait of a woman with Tariq's eyes. "My mother," Tariq whispered. The wolf howled softly, and in the distance a second howl answered. Then it vanished, leaving Tariq clutching the locket, his mind racing with questions. Tariq clutched the golden locket, his heart racing as he stared at the portrait of the woman inside. The wolf sat beside him, its golden eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "Is this really my mother?" he whispered. The wolf nudged the locket with its nose, as if saying yes. Before Tariq could ask more questions, footsteps echoed in the garden. Sheikh Ahmed hurried toward him, his lantern casting a warm glow. "Tariq, what are you doing out here so late?" Tariq held up the locket. "The wolf came back. It gave me this. Look, it's my mother." The sheikh took the locket, his eyes widening. This is Layla," he said, his voice trembling. "She was a dear friend long ago. But how did the wolf find this?" The wolf let out a low growl and trotted toward the palace gates, stopping to glance back at them. "It wants us to follow," Tariq said. Sheikh Ahmed hesitated. "It's the middle of the night, Tariq. We should wait until morning." "Please," Tariq begged. "The wolf wouldn't lead us into danger." Not after everything. Reluctantly, the Sheikh agreed. They followed the wolf through the silent streets of the city, past sleeping markets and shadowy alleys, until they reached an old, crumbling house at the edge of the desert. The wolf pawed at the door, which creaked open to reveal a dusty room filled with faded tapestries and broken furniture. Tariq's breath caught. On the wall hung a painting of the same woman in the locket, Layla, holding a baby. This was her home, Sheikh Ahmed said softly. She disappeared years ago, after bandits attacked her caravan. We thought she was lost forever. The wolf nudged a wooden chest under the painting. Inside, Tariq found a journal written in his mother's hand. The pages spoke of a secret. Layla was the guardian of a sacred oasis, a place where the desert's magic flowed strongest. But bandits had sought its power, forcing her to hide it with a spell. The oasis we found, Tariq exclaimed. The jinn's lamp was there. My mother protected it. Sheikh Ahmed nodded, his face grave. If bandits discover this journal, they'll tear the desert apart to find that oasis again. We must keep it safe. Suddenly, the wolf snarled, ears flattening. Outside, shadows moved, men on horseback, their faces covered. Bandits! They followed us! Tariq cried. Sheikh Ahmed grabbed the journal and blew out the lantern. Out the back! Quickly! They slipped into the desert, the wolf leading them through a maze of dunes. But the bandits were close behind, their torches flickering like angry fireflies. Tariq stumbled in the sand, the journal clutched to his chest. There's a cave ahead. Sheikh Ahmed pointed to a dark opening in a rocky hill. Hide there. They scrambled inside, the wolf guarding the entrance. But as the bandits dismounted, their leader laughed. Come out, Sheikh. We know you're in there. Tariq recognized the voice. It was the bandit chief from the canyon. How had he escaped the jinn's whirlwind? Give us the journal, the bandit growled, or we'll smoke you out. The wolf let out a thunderous roar, its fur bristling. But the bandits lit a fire at the cave's entrance, thick smoke billowing inside. Tariq coughed, his eyes stinging. We can't stay here. Just as the smoke grew unbearable, a familiar voice echoed outside. Leave them be. Zara, the leader of the Bonu Hadi tribe, rode into view with her warriors, swords drawn. The bandits turned to fight, but Zara's archers loosed a volley of arrows, driving them back. The wolf leaped into the fray, snapping at the bandits' horses, while Sheikh Ahmed and Tariq crawled out of the cave. Zara, how did you find us? The Sheikh asked. Your wolf led us, Zara said, dismounting. It howled outside our camp like a sandstorm. Seems it's fond of you, boy. She nodded at Tariq. The bandit chief fled into the night, but not before shouting, This isn't over. The desert's secrets belong to us. Back at the palace, Tariq and Sheikh Ahmed studied Layla's journal. The pages revealed a map to a hidden temple beneath the sacred oasis, a temple holding a magical artifact that could control the desert storms. If the bandits find this, the Sheikh said, they'll unleash chaos. Tariq traced the map with his finger. We have to get there first. My mother wanted me to protect it. I feel it. Sheikh Ahmed sighed. It's too dangerous. The desert is vast, and the bandits are watching. But Tariq stood firm. The wolf will help us. And Zara's tribe too. We can't let the bandits win. The Sheikh finally agreed. At dawn, they set out with Zara's warriors, the wolf guiding the way. 4 days, they rode through scorching heat and icy nights, following the map's clues. Tariq's heart swelled with pride. He was fulfilling his mother's legacy. On the 3rd day, they reached a towering sand dune. Beneath it, half buried in sand, stood an ancient stone door carved with symbols. This is it, Tariq said. The temple entrance. But as they dug, the ground trembled. The sand shifted, revealing not just the door, but a massive scorpion, its stinger dripping venom, guarding the temple's secrets. The giant scorpion lunged, its stinger slashing through the air like a whip. Tariq stumbled backward as Sheikh Ahmed yanked him out of harm's way. Zara's warriors narked arrows, but the creature's armored shell deflected them. Aim for its eyes, Zara shouted. The wolf snarled, leaping onto the scorpion's back and biting its jointed tail. The creature hissed, thrashing wildly to shake the wolf off. Tariq grabbed a fallen spear and charged, jabbing at the scorpion's leg. "Leave us alone." The spear cracked the scorpion's exoskeleton, oozing green venom. Enraged, the creature swung its tail, sending the wolf flying into the sand. Tariq's heart dropped. No! But the wolf scrambled up, unhurt, and howled, a sound that shook the dunes. To everyone's shock, the sand around the scorpion began to move. Dozens of smaller scorpions crawled out, swarming the giant one. They clambered over its body, stinging it relentlessly until the monster collapsed, twitching. Zura lowered her bow, stunned. "The wolf commands the desert's creatures." Tariq ran to the wolf, hugging its neck. "Thank you. You saved us again." The wolf huffed and trotted to the stone door, pawing at a symbol shaped like the locket Tariq wore. "It wants me to open it," Tariq realized. He pressed the locket against the symbol, and with a loud click, the door slid open, revealing a dark staircase. The group descended into the temple, torches in hand. The walls were covered in ancient paintings of a woman who looked like Tariq's mother, Layla, standing beside a glowing orb. "The storm's heart," Sheikh Ahmed read from the journal. "An artifact that controls the desert's winds and sands. Your mother hid it here to protect the land." Deep in the temple, they found a chamber lit by shafts of sunlight. In the center, on a stone pedestal, floated the storm's heart, a shimmering orb swirling with sand and lightning. Tariq reached out, but Zura grabbed his wrist. "Wait!" The journal warned of traps. As if on cue, the floor trembled. Stone slabs shifted, blocking the exit, and the walls began to close in. "The temple is collapsing," a warrior yelled. The wolf barked at a corner of the room where a painting of Layla held the orb. Tariq noticed her hand pointed to a hidden lever. He pulled it, and the walls stopped moving. A secret door opened, leading to a tunnel. "This way!" They ran through the tunnel, emerging into a vast underground garden with a sparkling lake. Floating above the water was the storm's heart, protected by a beam of light. "How do we reach it?" Sheikh Ahmed asked. Tariq spotted stepping stones beneath the water's surface. "We have to step on the stones in the right order. Look, the paintings show constellations." Guided by the journal, Tariq carefully stepped on the stones, each engraved with a star pattern. The wolf followed, its paws glowing faintly. When Tariq reached the final stone, the beam of light dimmed, and the storm's heart floated into his hands. "You did it!" Sheikh Ahmed said proudly. But as Tariq held the orb, visions flashed in his mind. A desert swallowed by storms, bandits stealing the orb, his mother's voice pleading, "Protect it." Suddenly, the bandit chief's laughter echoed through the chamber. "Thank you for finding the orb, boy. Now hand it over." The bandits had followed them. They aimed crossbows at the group, their eyes greedy. The wolf growled, but Tariq whispered, "Don't attack. They'll hurt you." The bandit chief snatched the storm's heart. "With this power, I'll rule the desert." But the orb began to glow violently. "It's not working for you," Tariq said. "Only my family can control it." The bandit chief sneered. "Then you'll make it obey." He grabbed Tariq's arm, pressing the boy's hand to the orb. The temple shook as sand and wind erupted from the orb, forming a monstrous tornado. The bandit chief screamed as the storm consumed him, hurling him into the lake. The other bandits fled, but the tornado chased them, sealing the temple entrance with rubble. Tariq collapsed, the orb rolling from his hands. The wolf nudged it back to him, its eyes urgent. I have to stop the storm," Tariq gasped. He gripped the orb, concentrating with all his might. The tornado slowed, then dissolved into a gentle breeze. The storm's heart dimmed, safe once more. Exhausted, the group camped by the lake. Zura kept watch while Tariq slept, the orb cradled in his arms. But deep in the night, the wolf suddenly woke him, growling at the water. Ripples spread across the surface, and a pale hand emerged, followed by a woman in a flowing blue robe, her face identical to Layla's. "Mother!" Tariq whispered. The woman smiled, her voice echoing like wind. "You've done well, my son. But the storm's heart is not safe here anymore. Take it to the Mountain of Whispers, the only place where its power can be sealed forever. But how? Tariq asked. Where is the mountain? Before she could answer, the vision faded and the water stilled. The wolf whimpered, staring at the orb. Somewhere far away, thunder rumbled. A new storm was coming, and this time it would take everything to survive. The sky turned black as the desert roared to life. Sand spiraled into a monstrous storm, taller than mountains, devouring the horizon. Tariq clutched the storm's heart, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The curse is awake! Zara shouted over the wind. Your mother's warning was true. The desert wants to destroy us all. Sheikh Ahmed gripped Tariq's shoulder. We must reach the Mountain of Whispers before the storm does. The wolf howled, leading the group into a narrow canyon as the storm chased them. Rocks tumbled from the cliffs, and camels bellowed in fear. Tariq's hands trembled. This is my fault, he thought. I used the orb's power, and now the desert is punishing us. 3 days earlier. The vision of Tariq's mother still haunted him. Take the storm's heart to the Mountain of Whispers, she had said. But where was this mountain? The journal's map showed only a faded symbol, a serpent coiled around a peak. The Mountain of Whispers is a legend, Zara said, sharpening her sword by the fire. They say it's guarded by a serpent that eats the sun. No one who goes there returns. Sheikh Ahmed frowned. Legends often hide truths. We have no choice. If the bandits return for the orb. Tariq nodded. We leave at dawn. The wolf, curled beside him, thumped its tail in agreement. The journey began peacefully. The desert stretched endlessly, golden dunes shimmering under the sun. But on the second day, they found a dying bandit slumped by a cactus, his skin cracked by thirst. Water, he begged. Zara drew her dagger. Here's one of them. Leave him. No. Tariq knelt, offering his water skin. He's hurt. The bandit drank greedily, then whispered, The Mountain of Whispers, the path is cursed. Turn back. Before he could say more, he fell silent, his eyes vacant. Foolish boy, Zara muttered. Mercy gets you killed. But that night, as Tariq slept, the wolf growled at the shadows. A figure crept into camp, the dying bandit, alive and grinning. He snatched the storm's heart from Tariq's bag and fled. Thief! Sheikh Ahmed shouted, waking the camp. The wolf gave chase, tackling the bandit into a dune. Tariq grabbed the orb, but the bandit laughed. You're too late. My chief knows your path. He's waiting. Zara silenced him with a rope to the throat. We're being hunted. Move faster. By the 5th day, the terrain turned jagged. Sharp rocks tore at their camels' feet, and the air grew thin. The wolf sniffed the wind, leading them to a cave marked with the serpent symbol. Inside, carvings showed ancient warriors sealing the storm's heart in the mountain. We're close, Tariq said. But as they exited the cave, the ground collapsed. Tariq slid into a pit, the orb slipping from his hands. The wolf leaped after him, landing on a ledge. Below, venomous snakes hissed in the darkness. Climb. Sheikh Ahmed threw a rope. Tariq grabbed it, but the storm's heart teetered on the edge. If I leave it, the desert dies. If I stay, I die. With a deep breath, he lunged for the orb, and the ledge crumbled. The wolf sank its teeth into his cloak, holding him midair as the snake struck. One bit the wolf's leg, but it didn't let go. Zara and the sheikh hauled them up, the wolf collapsing with a whimper. You're hurt. Tariq pressed his scarf to the wolf's wound. The wolf licked his hand weakly. Its golden eyes dimmed. Now. The storm closed in, sand slicing like knives. The Mountain of Whispers loomed ahead, its peak hidden in thunderclouds. Tariq cradled the wolf in his arms, tears mixing with blood on its fur. Hold on, he begged. We're almost there. Zara pointed to a stone archway at the mountain's base. The entrance! Hurry! They staggered inside as the storm swallowed the world behind them. The cavern was eerily silent, lit by glowing crystals. A massive stone door blocked their path, carved with a serpent's face. The guardian, Sheikh Ahmed whispered. Before Tariq could touch the door, the crystals flared. The serpent carving moved, stone scales grinding as it slithered off the door, forming into a living creature of rock and fire. "Who disturbs the mountain?" It boomed, fangs dripping molten lava. Tariq stepped forward, the storm's heart glowing. I need to seal this orb. To save the desert." The serpent lunged, its jaws wide enough to swallow a camel. "The desert does not want your help." The wolf, weak but defiant, leaped at the serpent and was batted aside like a pebble. It hit the wall with a whine, motionless. "No!" Tariq screamed. The serpent loomed over him. "Give me the orb, child, or join your pet in death." The serpent's fiery jaws hovered inches from Tariq's face, its breath scorching his skin. But as the storm's heart glowed brighter in his hands, Tariq remembered his mother's words. The desert's magic is not to be feared, but understood. "I'm not giving you the orb," Tariq shouted, holding it high. "My mother hid it to protect the desert, and I'll do the same." The serpent hissed, but the crystals in the cavern began to pulse with light, reflecting in the storm's heart. The orb swirling sand and lightning shot out, wrapping around the serpent like chains. The creature roared, thrashing as the magic forced it back into the stone door. Its molten veins cooled into rock, and its fiery eyes dimmed to lifeless carvings. The mountain trembled as the door creaked open, revealing a chamber filled with blinding light. "The sealing room," Sheikh Ahmed said. But Tariq didn't move. He ran to the wolf, lying motionless against the wall. Its chest barely rose, and the snake bite on its leg had turned black. "Please," Tariq begged, tears streaming. "Don't leave me." The wolf's golden eyes flickered open. With its last strength, it nudged Tariq toward the chamber. "No, I won't leave you." Zara scooped Tariq into her arms. "The wolf's final wish is to save the desert. Honor it." 2 days earlier, the wolf limped beside Tariq as the group climbed the mountain's steep paths. Its wound festered, but it refused to rest. "Why won't you let me help you?" Tariq whispered, offering water. The wolf licked his hand, its eyes full of secrets. That night, while Tariq slept, the wolf vanished. He found it at dawn, sitting atop a cliff, howling at the moon. A silvery scar now marked its leg, the bite healed. "How?" Tariq gasped. The wolf nuzzled him, leading him to a patch of glowing herbs. "Desert's mercy," Zara called them. "Rare healing plants. The wolf must know this mountain better than we thought." But as they neared the peak, the wolf grew uneasy. It snarled at shadows and herded Tariq away from crumbling edges. "It's like it's preparing for something," Sheikh Ahmed said. "Now." Tariq placed the storm's heart on a pedestal in the sealing chamber. The orb's light exploded, filling the room with a deafening hum. The walls shook, and cracks spread across the floor. "The mountain is collapsing," Zara yelled. They fled as boulders crashed around them. Tariq glanced back, watching the chamber seal forever, and the wolf's still form vanish under falling rocks. Outside, the storm had calmed. The desert lay still under a starry sky. But Tariq fell to his knees, screaming into the silence. "It's not fair. The wolf saved us, and now it's gone." Sheikh Ahmed knelt beside him. "The wolf chose this, Tariq. It fulfilled its destiny, just as you're fulfilling yours." As dawn broke, they buried the wolf scarf, the only thing left, under a palm tree. Tariq tied the golden locket around his neck. "I'll never forget you," he whispered. But as they rode back to the city, a shadow followed. High on the mountain, the stone serpent's eye flickered red. Deep underground, the storm's heart pulsed once, twice, then went dark. The journey back to the city was quiet. Tariq stared at the horizon, the weight of the wolf scarf heavy in his hands. Sheikh Ahmed rode beside him, his face solemn. "The desert will remember the wolf's courage," he said gently. Tariq nodded but said nothing. The locket around his neck felt colder than ever. 3 days later, the palace buzzed with celebration. Musicians played, and dancers twirled in colorful silks to honor Tariq's bravery. But Tariq sat alone in the garden, staring at the stars. "I wish you were here," he whispered to the wind. A soft growl answered. Tariq froze. Was that? He turned, hoping to see golden eyes in the shadows. Instead, he found Zara standing behind him, holding a small bundle. "The desert doesn't forget its heroes," she said, unwrapping the cloth to reveal a tiny wolf pup, its fur grey as storm clouds. "For me." Tariq gasped. "Found her near the mountain," Zara said. "The pack left her behind. She needs a home." The pup nuzzled Tariq's hand, and his heart leaped. "I'll name her Amira," he said. "It means princess." But as Tariq carried Amira to his chambers, the ground trembled. Vases shattered, and torches flickered. Sheikh Ahmed burst into the room. "Earthquakes! The city is shaking." From the palace balcony, they saw cracks splitting the streets. People screamed as buildings crumbled. And in the distance, the mountain of whispers roared, a plume of smoke and ash rising from its peak. "The serpent," Tariq whispered. "It's awake." The next morning, scouts returned with terrible news. The mountain's peak had collapsed, and a river of molten rock now flowed toward the city. "The serpent's curse," an old woman wailed. "It punishes us for disturbing the storm's heart." Tariq gripped Amira tightly. "This is my fault. I have to fix it." Sheikh Ahmed shook his head. "The mountain is too dangerous. We'll evacuate the city." "No," Tariq said. "The serpent wants the storm's heart. If we give it back, maybe the curse will stop." Zara stepped forward. "The boy's right. But the heart is buried under tons of rock. We'll need magic to reach it. Magic like this." Tariq held up the locket. It glowed faintly, as if answering the mountain's call. Ahead, a faint orange glow flickered. Tariq emerged into a cavern where a natural fire burned in a stone pit. The sacred flame. But as he reached for it, a voice snarled, "Drop the shard, boy." The bandit leader stood in the shadows, his stone hand clutching a dagger. "You'll burn the shard, and I can't have that." Above, Zara and Sheikh Ahmed found the tunnel entrance. Amira darted in, growling urgently. "The pup's right," Zara said. "Move." Tariq backed toward the flame. "The jinn will destroy everything." "Let it," the bandit spat. "I'll rule the ruins." He lunged, but Tariq threw sand in his eyes and kicked the dagger away. The bandit tackled him, and they grappled, rolling toward the fire. Amira burst into the cavern, leaping onto the bandit's back. He screamed, swatting at her, and Tariq seized the shard. With a cry, he hurled it into the sacred flame. The flame exploded, consuming the shard in a blaze of light. The bandit howled as his stone hand crumbled to ash. "No! My power!" The jinn's roar shook the cavern. "You dare defy me!" The sacred flame surged, forming a fiery tornado. Tariq grabbed Amira and ran as the tornado devoured the bandit and chased them, melting the tunnel walls. Outside, Zara and Sheikh Ahmed hauled Tariq from the collapsing tunnel. The desert sky churned as the jinn storm descended, now fused with the sacred flame. "What have you done?" Sheikh Ahmed whispered. The flaming tornado spiraled into the jinn's form, its body now fire and lightning. "Now I am unstoppable." Tariq stared in horror. The sacred flame hadn't destroyed the jinn, it had powered it. The jinn's fiery tornado roared toward Tariq, Sheikh Ahmed, and Zara, its flames melting the sand into glass. Amira barked furiously, her small body trembling but defiant. "Run!" Zara yelled, pulling Tariq backward. But the jinn's laughter shook the ground. "Where will you hide, little worms?" Tariq clutched the golden locket around his neck, the one with his mother's portrait. It burned hot against his skin. "Use the locket, my son," his mother's voice whispered in his mind. "The desert's heart beats within you. Stay back!" Tariq shouted, stepping forward. He ripped the locket from his neck and held it high. The jinn paused, its fiery eyes narrowing. "A pretty trinket cannot save you," it sneered. "This isn't just a trinket," Tariq cried. "It's a key to your prison." He threw the locket into the heart of the tornado. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a blinding golden light exploded, swallowing the flames. The jinn screamed as the light tore through its body, revealing the shard of the storm's heart hidden within. "Now, Amira!" Tariq shouted. The wolf pup leaped into the air, snapping the shard in her jaws. She landed hard, cracks spreading across the shard until it shattered into dust. The jinn's tornado collapsed, dissolving into a harmless breeze. Silence fell over the desert. 3 hours earlier, Tariq lay on the sand, staring at the monstrous jinn. The sacred flame empowered it. Sheikh Ahmed said, horrified, "What do we do now?" Zara gripped her sword. "We fight. Or we die." Amira nudged Tariq's hand, her eyes glowing faintly. He sat up. "The locket! My mother's spirit spoke to me. She said the locket can stop the jinn." Sheikh Ahmed frowned. "How?" "I don't know. But we have to try." The group raced to the palace, the jinn storm chasing them. In the library, Tariq flipped through his mother's journal. "Here." A drawing of the locket trapping a jinn in a sandstorm. She used it before. Zara peered out the window. The jinn was closer now, its winds tearing roofs from houses. "Whatever your plan is, do it fast. Now." The jinn was gone, but the desert was scarred. Glassy sand crunched under Tariq's feet as he knelt beside Amira. The pup panted, unharmed but exhausted. "You did it, girl," he whispered. Sheikh Ahmed placed a hand on Tariq's shoulder. "Your mother would be proud." Zara smirked. Not bad for a beggar boy. That night, the city celebrated again, but Tariq slipped away to the garden. Amira followed, carrying something in her mouth, the shattered locket, its chain glinting in the moonlight. "You found it," Tariq said. As he touched the locket, his mother's ghost appeared, smiling. "The desert is safe, my son. But your journey isn't over." "What do you mean?" Tariq asked. "The storm's heart is gone, but the desert's magic remains. Protect it, as I did." Her ghost faded, leaving Tariq with the broken locket. Amira nuzzled his hand. In the distance, a familiar howl echoed. A grey wolf stood atop a dune, its golden eyes glowing. Then it vanished, leaving a single paw print in the sand. The next morning, Tariq stood with Sheikh Ahmed at the city gates, a new resolve in his heart. "I want to travel the desert," he said, "to learn its secrets and protect it." The sheikh nodded. "Then I'll go with you." Zara joined them, leading 2 camels. "Someone has to keep you fools alive." Amira barked, chasing a desert hare into the dunes. Tariq laughed, but as he turned to follow, he spotted a shadowy figure watching them from afar, a man in a cloak, holding a map marked with the serpent symbol. The desert's magic had been saved, but new dangers lurked on the horizon. The desert sun rose golden over the dunes, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose. Tariq stood beside Sheikh Ahmed and Zara at the edge of the city, Amira perched proudly on his shoulder. The cloaked figure in the distance had been revealed as the last of the bandits, armed with a rusted dagger and a map to nowhere. With a single command from Zara, the Bonu hardy warriors had chased him into the horizon, where he vanished like a mirage. The city had healed. Cracks in the streets were filled with mortar mixed with crushed pearls, a symbol of resilience. The marketplace buzzed with life again, but now stalls bore signs in bold letters, "No one leaves hungry." Sheikh Ahmed had decreed that the wealth of the city would feed every orphan, clothe every beggar, and shelter every traveler. The people cheered his name, but he always nodded to Tariq. "The true ruler of this desert," he said, "is kindness." One evening, as the stars blinked awake, Tariq visited the garden where he'd once begged for bread. He placed a loaf of honey cake and a bowl of water by the palm tree where the wolf scarf was buried. Amira sniffed the ground, then wagged her tail. A soft breeze stirred the leaves, and for a moment Tariq saw the outline of the grey wolf in the moonlight, its golden eyes warm and proud. "Thank you," Tariq whispered. The wolf dipped its head and dissolved into stardust, its spirit finally at peace. Years later, Tariq rode through the desert with Amira, now a fierce and loyal companion. He wore his mother's locket, repaired and gleaming, and carried a staff carved with symbols of storms and wolves. Villagers greeted him as guardian of the sands, and children begged for tales of his adventures. Sheikh Ahmed, his hair silver but his heart strong, ruled with wisdom learned from a boy who had nothing but courage. Zura led the city's guards, her sword sharp and her laughter louder than ever. The desert thrived. Oases bloomed where bandits once lurked, and the mountain of whispers stood silent, its secret safe. The storm's heart was gone, but its magic lived on, in the winds that carried songs of Layla's bravery, in the rains that nourished the land, and in the heart of an orphan who had become a legend. And so, the desert whispered, "No storm lasts forever. No night hides the dawn. The smallest light, a boy, a wolf, a wish, can change the world."